Both. I ask, because typically on a Friday, it's Paul Alexander and James Allen. So it's up to Shannon, however she wants to do that. And then any other guests that she wants. Good morning. That was Dave asking me about Friday. So let's see. Tracy Bogert, a.k.a. Pendejo. Welcome. Anthony Del Toro. Good morning, Sam Tobias. Good morning. And apparently, I think we have Jeremy tomorrow. One day this week that we don't have Dave is tomorrow. He's locked into WOAI tomorrow. Standings. It's a game and a half, right? You're right. Oh, I know what I need. I need this. Hector Gomez, good morning.
Now, Chris Duel.
Welcome in on a Monday, a manic Monday. Lots going on in the sports world. It's the Chris Duel Show, along with Shannon Salty Sweeney and Dave Ayler. For Dave Ayler, it is a metal Monday, as he is wearing his metal T-shirt. We will get into that here in just a bit. And in fact, you can see Dave Ayler's metal T-shirt if you join us on Facebook Live. There's a lot of ways you can access our video feed. You can go to AM 1300 The Zone's Facebook page, Ticket 760's Facebook page. There is a YouTube link to it. There is a Twitch link to it. We are all over the place, so go check that out if you are so inclined. Always a lot of fun people in there. I see John Williams just jumped in from Dallas, Anthony Del Toro, Hector Gomez, Tracy Bogert, Sam Tobias. So welcome in everybody there, and welcome Shannon Salty Sweeney. How was your weekend?
Uneventful, but That's the way I like them.
Uneventful?
Yeah.
What'd you do for Mother's Day with Mom?
Dinner.
Dinner?
Dinner.
Sweet.
Some good old dinner. She got some new clothing items, and she wore one to dinner last night.
Woo!
Lovely, but yeah, pretty uneventful. I told you I was waiting for furniture to be delivered this weekend.
How'd that work out?
That was my plan. Well, I don't have it, so
Oh!
Yeah, after waiting, I was supposed to come Friday, and of course, it's big, so I got a sign for it. And after waiting all day Friday, I get an email that says, your shipment's been delayed. Well, how is that possible?
Yeah.
They told me it's out for shipment today. So then after numerous phone calls, finally got down to it that there's a bit of a screw up on a lot of people's ends here.
Is it a couch? Is it a bed? Is it a table? Is it
like
all of the above?
Outdoor furniture set. So
Outdoor?
couch, chairs, table. Yeah.
You are styling.
Oh, yeah. I've got the turf going in my backyard. I've got a lovely fire pit. I'm just needing the furniture now.
And does it arrive today? When does it arrive?
Who knows?
Oh, we don't know. Okay.
That's the surprise.
Now, when you found this out, when you were talking to people on the phone, did you maintain your composure or did you get a little agitated?
I always maintain my composure with the notion that the people I'm speaking to are not the reason I'm having the problem that I'm having.
Very logical.
When I get like a supervisor or someone who is in power, who has power to do something, I will, have my way with them if I deem it necessary. But I'm very kind up until then.
Have my way with them. Very nice. Very nice. Well, let's introduce Dave Ayler, our soundscape stylist who proclaims that Mondays are metal Mondays. Therefore, Dave Ayler, a metalhead with the Slayer t-shirt. When you went to the closet or the drawer this morning, why Slayer specifically?
Well, I haven't worn this one in a while, and it shows because this is from 2012 when they played Mayhem Fest. They co-headlined with Slipknot.
Nice.
And I think the COVID-19 is catching up to me because this shirt used to be really loose on me, and now it's tight on the sides. So it's time to get on a diet or something.
Very cool. We got to pair you up. Chuck Mikatinik, who does the sports on Fox News in San Antonio. He's a big metalhead.
I've met Chuck maybe once or twice, just kind of in passing.
Yeah.
We're Facebook friends, and he posts a lot of stuff on metal on his Facebook. Plays a lot of metal on the show, on his Sunday show.
Yes. And I used to get him on when we did the show in the afternoon. We'd have him on a lot. He does his sports at night. So guys like him and Don Harris and other sports anchors. I feel bad saying, hey, you want to come on the show at 7 in the mornings when you got home last night at 11? I think it's cruel and unusual punishment. So my shirt, Shannon and Dave says playoffs. Because I wake up this morning, I look at the NBA standings in the Western Conference, and my beloved San Antonio Spurs, with 5 games to play, have a game and a half lead over the New Orleans Pelicans, who won last night. We just assumed, or at least I did, for the last few weeks that, Spurs are at least going to get like the 10 position and a play-in into that play-in tournament. And they've got it's Milwaukee, the Spurs' final 5 games. Milwaukee tonight. It's at the AT&T Center. Then on the road, a back-to-back in the New York City area at Brooklyn. I think that's Wednesday. At the New York Knicks Thursday. And then 2 games against Phoenix this weekend to close out the regular season. And as we speak, Phoenix is in a dogfight with Utah for the number 1 overall seed, not only in the Western Conference, but in the NBA. And I do believe New Orleans plays tonight. So if we lose to Milwaukee tonight, we being the Spurs, I like to say we, even though I don't play. And New Orleans, by the end of tonight, New Orleans, Shannon, could be a half game behind the Spurs. This is getting scary.
I'm going to put you down on the couch here, and I'm going to ask you how you feel about that.
I'm freaking out. I can't have the Spurs miss the playoffs or any kind of postseason 2 years in a row. That's just not right.
And there's 5 games left. How long is this run for?
How long is what run?
I know they're really tight on their schedule. So we're like a week out.
Oh, we're the regular season, 6 days left. The regular season will end on Sunday. The final game of the regular season is Sunday against the Phoenix Suns.
6 days and 5 games in 6 days.
Yes. And they just did
That's a lot.
5 games in 7 days also.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it's crazy. Which also makes me think, Shannon, and leads us to our poll question. I know nobody likes to think about this, and nobody knows for sure.
I kind of like it.
You kind of like it.
It's been in my way.
Well, and it totally freaks me out because it's possible. Nobody knows for sure what Greg Popovich is going to do theoretically. Theoretically, and I don't want this to happen, Shannon. Theoretically, this coming Sunday, 6 days from now, less than a week away, Gregory Charles Popovich might be coaching his final game for the San Antonio Spurs.
See, that really must be messed. That probably is messing with your mind more than this last 5 games of the season. No
It
matter what
is.
happens there. But
It
you're right.
is.
It does lead us to our poll question today, asking the folks out there, how much longer does Greg Popovich remain as head coach of the Spurs? Our options today till the season ends, through next season, 2 more seasons, and more than 2 seasons, currently tied with 50 and 50% of the vote till the season ends and through next season. I voted through next season just because I feel like he wants at least one more normal season under his belt.
That's a good
COVID,
point.
The schedule isn't
Mhm.
absolutely insane. He gets to enjoy it, right? When you travel to these places and go to that restaurant you love going to in Chicago just one more time when you're those kind of things.
That's a good point.
Matter.
Yeah. Well, and I sense, and again, though, and that here's the other thing that freaks me out. I'm kind of with you, and I kind of feel that that he would not leave this. I got a feeling it's going to be Becky, but I don't know, as the next head coach. I don't think he would leave this franchise to the next coach unless he felt he was leaving it in good hands. It's fine right now. However, there's a lot of mystery this offseason. What's going to happen with DeMar DeRozan? And that's on DeMar. That's up to DeMar DeRozan pretty much. I think the Spurs. He's had a great year, maybe his best year. I think the Spurs would re-sign him at a reasonable number. But it's up to DeMar, and from what we hear from Jeff Garcia and other NBA analysts, the only 2 mega prizes of this free agency for the entire NBA are DeMar DeRozan and Kawhi Leonard, ironically. So other teams may throw more money at DeMar than we will. So I think if Pop stepped away now and Becky Hammon inherited this team, or whoever it is, I think it would be a team very much in flux next season. Whereas this season, whatever they decide to do in free agency or with DeMar DeRozan, I think it'll be a much more stable team a year from now than it is right now. And so I have a feeling I'm with you on 1 more full season, and then he steps aside. Yeah. Although I want him for 5 more. But he's 72. So how deep into your 70s are you going to coach?
I think that's a very fair point, especially with Becky, because we've talked before about what's the right situation for her, and she can't go into somewhere where she's expected to build almost from the ground up.
And I got another question or a prospect for you as a possible next Spurs coach, but we'll do that in a moment. Right now it's 6:20. We're going to do this twice this morning. We do it twice every morning and 12 times throughout the day on whichever radio station you're listening to, either AM 1300 The Zone or Ticket 760. It is the Grand in Your Hand cash contest. You're going to hear a keyword, and then you go to either website, Ticket 760 or AM 1300 The Zone, pop in that keyword where you see Grand in Your Hand, and you're in the running for $1,000. Here comes the keyword.
Right now, here's your chance to win $1,000. Just enter this nationwide keyword on our website. Green. That's green. Enter it now.
Green, as in Danny Green, former Spur. All right, one more little wrinkle, Shannon, on the Greg Popovich / who would be the next head coach equation. Most of us, myself included, think it's Becky Hammons. She's been here. She's the head coach in waiting. I do believe she's put in a lot of time. She would inherit a lot of players who have worked with her for a number of years. This young core will have kind of come up in the NBA with her on the staff. Now, in Milwaukee, and they're in town as we speak, the Milwaukee Bucks, Mike Budenholzer, the longest tenured Greg Popovich assistant. He was with Pop for 17 years with the Spurs before he became the Atlanta Hawks head coach, before he went on to Milwaukee. There's rumblings in Milwaukee that the Bucks, having had the best record in the NBA each of the previous 2 years and not going deep in the playoffs, if they don't go deep in the playoffs this year with Giannis and company, there's rumbling that they would blow out Mike Budenholzer. So my question to you, Shannon, being objective about coaching ability and coaching resume, if you had two candidates as the next head coach of the Spurs, Becky Hammon, who's not yet been a head coach, and Mike Budenholzer, who has been a head coach at Atlanta, at Milwaukee, has been very, very successful in the regular season in Milwaukee, and knows the Spurs system and was with Pop for 17 years. Who do you hire as head coach if you could have him, Mike Budenholzer or Becky Hammon?
This is tricky.
I know.
It's in the NBA where everything is, depending on the organization and what kind of players you have playing for that organization, where in a player-driven league, I mean, I look at the Nets right now, and coaching doesn't matter over there. You can't tell me that they're where they are because of brand new head coach Steve Nash. Like, I don't think he's had that great of an impact. You could have put anybody over there, and they'd probably be where they are this season. But then you look at the Spurs, and you think, I think, and correctly so, Popovich gets a lot of the credit for all the success that they've had and him kind of piecing those players together. So looking for the future, I guess you'd have to go with someone who could do more of the same. I guess, I mean, history tells me they hired the dude that's been there for that long and has taken a team like Milwaukee, on a run and just couldn't get it done. But I don't know if you want to make history. I think you have to go with Becky, and I could see them easily going either way. I wouldn't fault them for picking one over the other if those really do become the next two candidates.
Yeah, the sentimental side of me, I want to see Becky Hammon as a head coach in the NBA, and I don't want to see her as a head coach anywhere but San Antonio. So it's like I want Becky Hammon to be the next head coach of the Spurs, and part of it is because it would be historic, and it is who she is. I just like her. I like her fire. I like her attitude. I like what she. And speaking of fire, I look at Mike Budenholzer, and he seems like a mild-mannered, nice guy. It's like Jason Garrett is a nice guy, but he didn't really have a lot of fire as head coach of the Dallas, where I see fire in Becky Hammon. Yeah. I see that fire that you need as a head coach. So it is a tough call. But if being objective and looking at resumes and experience in the league as a coach, as an assistant, and as a head coach, and having I don't even know what the number is for Becky as an assistant. I'm guessing I'll say 7, but I don't know. Maybe it's 6. Mike Budenholzer has 17 on the board as an assistant in San Antonio, and then added all these head coaching years in Atlanta and Milwaukee.
But again, you look at Steve Nash again. He had no experience, and he was just handed that Brooklyn job. So it's
true.
Like NBA, where what is there? Where amazing happens. I mean,
yeah.
There you go.
Well, and keep an eye on Brooklyn, because two things as they go deep into the playoffs. A, you're right. Steve Nash has no head coaching experience, has never taken a team to the finals. I don't think he ever went to the finals as a player. And his lead assistant is Mike D'Antoni, who notoriously never got the job done in the playoffs with any of his teams. So that's going to be interesting. Given that factor, that's going to be interesting to watch in the playoffs with Brooklyn. All right, lots going on. Go vote on the poll question. How much longer do we have Coach Greg Popovich with the Spurs? I hope it's at least 7 more years, but when it happens, it's going to happen swiftly. It's going to be his choice, and it's going to rock my world. I'll tell you that, because he's been around a long time, and we attribute pretty much all of our success to him and a guy named Tim Duncan and others. All right, quick break. Coming up, our high five play of the day. Not enough good news in the sports world and in the world in general. So we like to start the mornings off early in the mornings with the high five play of the day. A little bit later, Shannon's Salty Shakedown, this day in sports history, sports birthdays. In the 8 o'clock hour, Andy Everett, our golf guru and the voice of UTSA athletics. She is Shannon Salty Sweeney. He is the dude in the Slayer t-shirt, your soundscape stylist, Super Dave Ayler, Slayer Dave Ayler. I'm Chris. We're with you till 9. Thanks for hanging out with us. It's the Chris Duel Show. Steve DeRocco, good morning. David Valles, good morning. Thomas V. Martinez says, Becky. Luisa Alanis, good morning. Wow, David says, I see no more fire from pop. That's an interesting. I've heard some people say that. I don't know. I don't necessarily agree with that. You know, and I mean, I think pop's consistent, but I have heard a number of people say that he seems a little more, and again, he could just be relaxed. And, you know, after all we've been through with the pandemic, after all he's been through, you know, a couple of years ago, losing his wife of decades and decades and decades, his soulmate. So, you know, maybe you get to a certain point where you go, you know what? You know, this is my profession and I'm really good at it, but I'm not going to lose my mind over it. And it also makes you wonder, at what point does he say, life's too short, I'm going to enjoy what I can enjoy now? But what if what he enjoys is coaching, so he sticks around? You know, you don't know. I don't know. I just know it could happen. His final game theoretically could be Sunday. That's all I'm saying. I'm getting coffee. Got my own darn coffee. I am a coffee snob. How many old people like me, Steve DeRocco would remember this. There were commercials in the early 80s. Be a coffee achiever. And one of the guys on it was quarterback Ken Anderson of the Cincinnati Bengals. He was a coffee achiever. I think even David Bowie was on some of those commercials. It's like the national or the international coffee, I guess, and that was pre-Starbucks. I'm guessing coffee sales were not that high at the time. Laura Burris. Good morning, Laura. Laura Burris works at the San Antonio Food Bank. God love her. When I saw earlier, Jesse Bratton, Lucinda Sullivan, didn't mean to blow you off. Clint Proctor, Jason Garcia, you just all showed up earlier in the segment before I could say hi. Okay. I'm going to microwave my coffee. I'm going to infuse my veins with caffeine. Caffeine, because management frowns upon crystal meth. Mask on, because I believe in science, Greg Abbott. Pendejo says Spurs fans are spoiled. I do agree with that. And if this team goes into a prolonged slump, and no matter what happens in these final 5 games, I mean, they've been there. They were over 500 for a long while this season. Oh, beautiful. For Clint Proctor. Cool. Clint Proctor wanted some Metallica. So Dave Ayler's going to play some Metallica because we aims to please, because we're all about customer service, and you are our customers. If you listen to this show, and we appreciate it. Clint Proctor on the Metallica. Yeah, that is amazing. Tracy, the last 37 championships among 11 franchises. And how amazing that the Spurs, number 3 on that list with most victories. Ralph Balderas, good morning. Jason Paniagua, good morning. So, Shannon, do you want to do this story or me? Which it doesn't matter to me. Any preference?
I'll let you do it since you found it.
Okay.
Provide some
Okay,
very superhero-esque.
I better pull it up in that case. Let's see, where is it? There it is. Yeah, and I'm going to see if I can Wikipedia that football player so we know a little more about him. Brandon Bair. Defensive end. He's from Idaho. That's where this happened. College in Oregon. Chiefs, Raiders, Eagles. 28 total tackles. Here we come. Let some of that metal wash over you a little bit on a Metal Monday. On a Metal Monday, some Metallica submitted for your approval by Soundscape stylist Dave Ayler. Why? Because it was requested on Facebook Live by Clint Proctor. A little Metallica for you from Dave Ayler. Why? Because we aims to please. See, you don't even like have to talk sports. You could request metal music, but you can talk sports with us, by the way. I don't give the phone number out enough. Someday I'll learn. Someday I'll figure this out. 1-800-707-9760. We only have one guest on today's show, and that's Andy Everett, our golf guru and the voice of UTSA Athletics. Andy Everett at 8:35. Any other time, now you call in during a guest, and actually, if you had something for that guest, and you said, hey, I want to ask Andy Everett this, then we'd probably even bring you on then. But if we don't have a guest and you want to talk sports with us, and it's a sports talk show, so ideally it would be sports, but we don't even limit you to that. If there's something else you want to talk about, like Shannon's backyard furniture, we'd go there. You want to talk about the COVID vaccine, we'd even go there. So that's just the way we roll. Phone number 800-707-9760. And we are streaming live video. That's where we heard from Clint. He wanted some Metallica on AM 1300 The Zone and Ticket 760's Facebook pages. So you can join us there. There's also a YouTube link. There's a Twitch link to that video. All kinds of fun stuff. Every morning at this time, we do something called the High Five Play of the Day. It has to do with good news, someone who deserves a high five. And Shannon, the namesake of the High Five Play of the Day is a place where you like to go axe throwing.
Yes, I do enjoy a good axe throw from time to time. Releases the anger, but only actually, well, it helps to also land that axe on the board, because it took a while to do that, and I was getting angry just doing that. But once you do it, it is so satisfying, and then to go over there and pull your axe from the wood you just threw it at, and just to do it all over again. It's fantastic, and it's safe. They do provide instructors there to watch over you and protect you from any crazy axe incidents that you think might occur but don't, because safety is no accident, and they do provide you with plenty of safety, even make you sign a waiver, so don't do anything stupid. But two great Austin area locations, one at Lakeway, one on Anderson. I'm sure they were packed last night as Austin FC took on Sporting KC in a heartbreaker. As Austin FC went up 1-0 in the first half, and in the last stretch of the game, Sporting KC put up 2 goals to end up winning that one, but it's all right. It's still a great showing for Austin FC. Still in their inaugural season. They played pretty well so far. And Chris, you found today's High Five story.
I did, and I don't want to taint the High Five Play of the Day, but I do want to talk a little later about Sporting KC's name. I just find that a little lame. We're Sporting KC. I mean, I understand Kansas City FC. That's but I guess I don't know. We'll get into that. Here, see, it's High Five Play of the Day. It's something positive, and there I go, being cynical.
You're going to make it negative, Chris.
Yeah, no, I'm going to snap right out of it. Here's your High Five Play of the Day. There was once a professional football player in the NFL. His name was Brandon Bayer, B-A-I-R. You've probably never heard of him. He was born in Rexburg, Idaho. He grew up in Idaho. He went to St. Anthony High School in Idaho. He wound up playing football for Oregon. Was not drafted. He was an undrafted free agent, had a relatively lackluster short career in the NFL. 2011 with the Kansas City Chiefs, 2012 to 2013 with the then Oakland Raiders, and 2013 to 2015 with the Philadelphia Eagles. In his NFL career, he only had 28 tackles. He had 1.5 sacks, forced no fumbles, and had 4 pass deflections. And oh, by the way, he was a defensive end. So he's been out of the league since 2015, back living in Idaho, where he grew up and now lives. Well, late last week, he comes upon Highway 20 in St. Anthony, Idaho, which is where he went to high school. And he saw that a train had collided with a semi-truck, and that semi-truck was in flames. So what did Brandon Bayer do? He hopped out of his vehicle and got to the flaming semi-truck, which was on the train track after the collision with the train. He told the newspaper, quote, "It was a conscious decision that I'm going in because he needs help right now." He's talking about the driver trapped inside that semi-truck that was in flames. Bear went on to say, quote, "I ran up to the window and saw dripping hot flames all over the inside of the truck. I could see a guy in a seatbelt, and I was able to reach in and get the seatbelt off of him. He was talking, and I told him we had to get him out of here now." Bear said that he climbed halfway into the wreckage and pulled out 25-year-old Steven Jensen through the rear window between the passenger seat and the driver's seat. Bear said, quote, "We walked away, and within seconds, the fire on the roof fell down inside, and the whole seat and the cab went up in flames. A few minutes later, there were a couple of big booms and explosions, and that vehicle was fully engulfed in flames." Jensen, the man that Bear rescued, was airlifted to an area hospital and was in stable condition as of this weekend. A hero. Former NFL player, not a big NFL career, but a high five to Brandon Bayer, who made a snap instant decision to save another man's life and was an absolute hero. And Shannon, I love this story. I love that Brandon Bayer did this. I love that a guy who really made no headlines in the NFL is now making headlines around the world for doing what he did, which was the right thing. It's one of the lead stories right now at ESPN.com and sports websites around the world. And it raises the question in me, Shannon, and I think it should in all of us, in a situation like that, when you have to save someone's life and you got to make a determination right now. Are you going to do something right now? And if you don't, somebody might die. But if you do, you could die too. Mm-hmm. I wonder if we would all make that decision. I would hope that we would.
Yeah, it sounds like something out of a Michael Bay film.
Yeah.
I mean, just the heroics of that. I mean, you set that scene perfectly of what he went through just to save that gentleman's life. Because you're right, it wasn't like if he did something, he was putting himself in harm's way in that situation. So absolutely just incredible.
Yeah, I'm sure there are other heroes who in moments like that did not get out of there alive, put themselves at risk. I mean, I've heard so many stories. There was an NFL football player. Gosh, this was in the 80s. And I'll get his name for you later in the show. I'll Google him. But he was an NFL football player. I believe he was a running back for the Kansas City Chiefs in the 80s, and it was in the summertime. And there was like a swimming hole, and a couple of kids fell in. And he didn't know how to swim, but he jumped in to try to save those kids. And I do believe he saved the kids, and then he drowned, and he lost his life. And I mean, it is a selfless act of heroism, and you just have to wonder and hope that you would do the same thing in that situation. And I mean, because your average person, I believe it's an extraordinary act that Brandon Bayer did on those train tracks last week. Your average person would say, "Oh my God, this is awful. Let me call 911 on my cell phone, and let's hope this guy's going to be okay." And no rescue crew could have gotten there in time.
And then use that cell phone to video record.
Yes.
So I would hope that my instinct would be actively helping.
Yeah, and I think about.
I certainly know I wouldn't be a documenter. I'm not
right. Well, and it's interesting, and the George Floyd situation. Apparently, it was a teenage girl who did the videoing, and if not for her video, so that the world could see what that police officer did to George Floyd, Derek Chauvin. I shouldn't even say his name, but if we bring scorn on his name, maybe we should. But I also wonder, there were like 10 or 11 other people watching George Floyd with the police officer with his knee on George Floyd's neck. And a lot of people obviously and rightfully credit the teenage girl for shooting the video. But I'm wondering if some of the grown men or grown adults, men and women, should have tried to intervene with that officer, knowing that if you did, you're going to be put down and probably be in handcuffs also. But should you, in the same way that Brandon Bayer jumped into the flaming truck to save the guy, if you or I, Shannon, were watching someone like George Floyd being killed in front of our eyes by, in this case, Derek Chauvin, would we try to go walk up and do something and intervene with the police officer, knowing that would put us at great risk? It's a question that I guess you can't really answer definitively until Joe Delaney. Thank you. The guy's name was Joe Delaney in 1983, who dove into the water he was the 1981 Rookie of the Year for the Kansas City Chiefs. I know I'm jumping all over the place here, but I remember that story, and to me, it reminds me of this story. But going back for a moment, just in any situation, it's, a car in flames, someone's life, somebody drowning, somebody's being killed unnecessarily. Would we intervene? And I would hope that in that moment that we would make the heroic decision.
Yeah, and you're right. It's only something you can answer when you get put in that circumstance. I think it's very much instinct.
Yeah, Joe Delaney. Thank you, Tracy Bogert, for giving me this information. Joe Delaney died on June 29th, 1983, while attempting to rescue 3 children from drowning in a pond in Monroe, Louisiana. He was posthumously awarded the Presidential Citizens Medal from President Ronald Reagan. And he went to the Pro Bowl in 81 as a rookie. He was a running back. He was a Rookie of the Year. He was a second-round draft pick, number 41 overall. He was expected, he had a great rookie year. He was expected to have a great career at running back, and drowned while trying to save children in water. And he knew he could not swim, but he dives in the water anyway. Amazing. So anyway, good on you, Mr. Brandon Bear, for that act of heroism. Now that we got the positivity out of the way, Sporting KC. I have a little bit of a problem with some soccer names. I like LA Galaxy. I know. San Antonio's team is called San Antonio FC. Austin is Austin FC. I love them. I love the color. I love the verde. I love everything they stand for. And I understand that to name a soccer team, the city's name and then FC is traditional, but I guess Sporting KC. I guess there are other sporting somethings around the world. Sporting Birmingham. I just gotta tell you, Shannon, I find the name Sporting KC just a little bit lame. I'm just saying.
Yeah, soccer names could be more interesting, or I very much agree. And I'm looking now at their Wikipedia, and they've gone through quite the name change, the Kansas teams.
Oh, so they came up with this after a bunch of other names.
Yeah, like they used to be the Wiz, I guess, like from like Dorothy or whatever.
Yeah.
I
like that better. I like that better.
I'll be honest, like when we got the MLS team, I'm like, well, as long as it's not something like Austin FC.
Yeah.
That'll be cool.
Yeah.
It was Austin FC. And obviously I'm totally fine with it now. Whatever it is, what it is. I get no say. And I'm totally on board, and I love the logo and I love everything. But you're right. Like a lot of these soccer teams, it's like, I wonder what we're gonna call it.
Yeah.
How about the location plus FC?
Yeah. And I think especially like MLS should have, and I get it, and I know it's European and it's the way it's been done forever, but I think in the United States we like mascots and team names and something cool.
You look at Spurs Coyote, he's been killing it this pandemic on the socials, and even something like that, but I don't think we can have like Austin FC like a giant oak tree just running around.
Yeah. Well, and I will admit this I remember when the Spurs, they had a name the team contest back in 1973. When they named the Spurs, I remember as a kid, I was going, Spurs? It's like the little thing you put on the back of a cowboy boot. It just in the same way, Austin FC has already grown on us and we're cool with it already. And obviously Spurs has grown on us, and I love the Spurs, and they're my NBA team, and they're my second favorite team ever behind the Cowboys. But I do remember going, really? A spur? Why didn't we name it the ropes? Why aren't we the lassos? Why aren't we, the
10-gallon hat?
Exactly. Yeah. Why aren't we the ruffles on a cowboy? It just sounded, you're going to name a team after spurred. Now it just like, of course they did. Yeah, it's great. I love it. Really?
When we think of, Washington in the NFL, we're all
Yes.
like, really? The Washington football team? Maybe they should just be Washington FC and be football club and not football club.
It's a thought. It's a thought. So, all right, there's that. Lots more to talk about in the world of sports, and we shall. Coming up in the 7 o'clock hour, Shannon's Salty Shakedown. We'll look at this day in sports history, sports birthdays. A highly unusual Tom Brady football card has emerged. You thought you've heard it all about what can be on football cards. This one's a little bit different. And if Shannon already has a little bit of, Tom Brady fatigue, I think this will add to it. We'll talk about that. We will talk NFL schedule unveiling is Wednesday, Shannon. Are you all geeked up for that? Woo!
I am.
We get the NFL schedules in about 48 plus hours. We'll talk NFL, NBA, baseball, and more. She is Shannon Salty Sweeney. He's Dave Ayler, your soundscape stylist. We're with you till 9. Thanks for hanging out. It's the Chris Duel Show. Tracy, thank you for the Joe Delaney reference. I appreciate that. That helped me. And he was the AFC Rookie of the Year. I mean, think of any Rookie of the Year suddenly drowning, trying to save children. It was an unbelievable story. DVA Mechanics on Twitch, welcome in. Alan Green, good morning. Let's see. Yvonne Yancey McGowan, good morning. Haven't seen you here in a while. Welcome back. I'm such a total freak. I got the hot coffee. I got the iced tea. I just go back and forth. Hot coffee, iced tea. Just as long as there's caffeine involved. If I could have a caffeine IV, I would just have the IV, just have the big bar here. Just hook me up. Just infuse me with caffeine, please. Please, oh, please, oh, please. Pure Leaf. Yeah, Anthony, that's a memory. Anthony Del Toro says, who misses waiting in line at Academy for your Spurs playoff shirts and caps? LOL. Anthony, I've told this story before. Don't know if I have time here. I'll tell it quick. I was doing Spurs radio. I was, in front of the microphone in the 2013 NBA Finals series, Spurs in Miami, when it looked like the Spurs were going to win that game, when Ray Allen hits that three-point shot, and the salesperson who had the Academy account handed me the copy. They said, all right, we're in the final minute. Once this game ends, read this. And it said, Spurs championship caps and T-shirts will go on sale at Academy tonight at midnight. Stores in San Antonio will open. I had like the paper in front of me ready to read it. And then Ray Allen hits that three-point shot, and like my jaw drops. The salesperson's jaw drops. Peter Bolger, who was the program manager, his jaw drops. We go to overtime. Spurs lose, as you know, and wind up losing in 7. But I was like, had the copy in my hand, was ready to read it at the next break because the Spurs were about to win that game. Carl Fisher, good morning.
Chris Duel.
It is a manic Monday. It is a metal Monday, as Dave Ayler, your soundscape stylist, wearing his Slayer t-shirt, plays metal music for you on this Monday. It is a sports Monday. Chris Duel show, along with Shannon Salty Sweeney, her Salty Shakedown, just about 30 minutes away, a little bit later in this 7 o'clock hour. Thanks for being with us. Phone number, if you want to jump on the phone lines with us, you're always welcome. Talk sports or life, whatever is on your mind, whatever we're talking about, whatever presses your buttons and makes something occur to you. 800-707-9760 is the phone number. 800-707-9760. Coming up in the 8 o'clock hour as well, as you know, Shannon, 8:35, Andy Everett's going to join us. And Andy is our resident golf guru, so I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about Rory McIlroy winning the Wells Fargo Championship in North Carolina yesterday, in Charlotte yesterday, I believe by one stroke. But the weird story of the weekend, Bryson DeChambeau thought he missed the cut, apparently flew from Charlotte, North Carolina back to his home in Dallas, Texas, when he found out or realized, no, you're still in this tournament. Get back on an airplane, head back to Charlotte. And he goes back and he plays fairly well in the rest of the weekend. I think he was just 6 strokes off the pace.
That he must have been under the weather or something, because that, for as analytical as that guy is, you would think he would always know where he sits.
Yeah.
By that cut line. And Rory getting that, I think that was the 3rd time he's won that tournament, but the first tournament he's won since 2019.
My goodness.
And, he was, prior to the Jordan Spieths and the Justin Thomases, I mean, he was the next guy that everyone wanted to be and know, and kind of the big name in the golfing world. And I think he still is a really big name. I always get excited when I see him here at Dell Match Play. And, he's fun because he's an Irishman, but he kind of he won all those majors, and then he really hasn't done anything in a while. And I know there were some injuries and things like that. So it'll be interesting to get Andy's take on him, especially as he's now back to winning tournaments.
Yeah, it is so weird in this, and hopefully it's not completely the post-Tiger world, but I was about to say in this post-Tiger world, Tiger set the bar so high, and, you're certainly, Andy, heavily into golf. You more into golf than I am. I'm a casual golf fan, but it's like I have this expectation. There's something in me, Shannon, that wants to see, whether it's Rory McIlroy and even Bryson DeChambeau. I like him because he's so out there and different and flamboyant and controversial. I would love to see a golfer, go on a run and become, there's never going to be the next Tiger, but right. I liked, in the same way we had Jack Nicklaus and Arnold Palmer, and you had these golfers that kind of were dominant. You could always count on Jack Nicklaus back in his day to be, right there knocking on the door, if not winning a lot of championships. I'm still, I guess I'm spoiled by Tiger. I want to see one of these guys emerge as like the next big thing.
Yeah, I think it depends on how you look at it. I mean, you can be so Tiger hardcore and then just pout about everybody else and say, well, they'll never be whatever. Or you can look at it as they're trying to achieve something, and this guy's going on a run and could be the guy to achieve it. This is kind of the same way we look at Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady, right? And the whole race for rings here, and that now after last year's Super Bowl, Tom Brady's just that much further ahead of Patrick, but Patrick's still so young and really kind of in his NFL career infancy still at this point. So I like looking at it at that way. Jordan Spieth obviously went on his run, and then he had some injuries, and then he just, after that awful time at the Masters, where he should have won his 2nd in a row and handed it over to Danny Willett after that disastrous hole 12 just will forever, I think, be his kryptonite. But then there's the Justin Thomases who have done pretty well and won a couple of majors. So I like golf for those storylines and those reasonings, and that we can compare them to Tiger and see that as where they're trying to get to, and use that as a storyline for how great the field is right now.
Absolutely. And of course, I think most fans, we mentioned Tiger, hope, and we have no idea where that story goes, or if he'll ever be able to play golf again on a major level. But, if Tiger Woods ever gets back into a PGA tournament, I mean, my goodness, what a moment and what a weekend that would be to see Tiger playing golf again. So we hope it happens. Anyway, we'll go heavier into golf with Andy Everett in about an hour and a half. He'll join us at about 8:35. And Shannon, we were talking NBA a little bit, if not a lot. We were talking some Spurs and some speculation on Spurs head coach Greg Popovich in the 6 o'clock hour. And we'll get back into that. But I did notice your boy, Luka Doncic, who's got issues with referees. He was ejected last night early in the third quarter of the Mavericks' 124-97 win at Cleveland against the Cavaliers for a flagrant foul 2. And I think he's now one technical away from suspension. And I think the way it works, and tell me if you know something different, Shannon, I think that carries over into the playoffs. So I wonder, and then I think the number, once you get suspended, I think then you get another 2. Or I wonder if Luka and the Mavericks want to get that suspension out of the way in the regular season so it doesn't happen to them in the playoffs, or if that makes sense at all. It's going to be interesting to see how they handle that.
Yeah. I have you seen the play that he got ejected for?
I have not. Tell me about it.
Okay, so basically he hit this gentleman in his no-no zone.
Uh-oh.
And I don't think it was on purpose. The guy ran into him, so Luka hit him on purpose. I just don't think the area in which he hit him was, I think it just was happenstance that is where his fists met body.
Ooh.
But that, I think, elevated it, right? Because it's like that area and then like anything to the head, right, is automatically going to be considered, a more deviant action there. And the faces he made while looking up at the jumbotron as he's realizing where he hit him and also that he's getting thrown out, he like can't believe it. He even said after the game, like, I knew I hit him, I just didn't realize, like, I didn't think I did anything like wrong. The guy ran into him and that was his just kind of retaliation. And just in that quick NBA like atmosphere, things like that happen. It certainly wasn't a Draymond Green type of situation, right? Where those have been very emotional.
I hate Draymond Green.
So I give Luka a pass for that. As far as the strategery of when he should sit out or if he should sit, I don't know. I like where the Mavs are now. They're in the fifth slot. Last I checked, they were tied with Portland. I don't know where they are now after last night's game, or just ahead of Portland, who was in the 6th slot. So they're okay, I think, as far as getting into the playoffs and not having to do a play-in.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd rather get it over with sooner than later if it's going to happen.
Although, and as I look at the standings, the Lakers are in that 7 slot, which is just mind-blowing that they might have to be in the play-in tournament. But they're only 2 games behind the Mavericks, and the Blazers in the 6th slot, 1 game behind the Mavericks. So theoretically, with only most teams now only have 4 or 5 games to play, depending on the numbers. Mavericks have 4 games to play. Lakers have 4 games to play. So it would have to be something like, Mavericks go 1-3 and Lakers go 3-1 or 4-0. Not impossible, but so still a little bit of question as to where the Mavericks might land. Certainly, you don't want to be in 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 if you can get up to 6 or better. But going to be interesting down the stretch to see what happens. And just a fascinating scenario, Shannon, if indeed the Lakers wind up in that play-in tournament, if they get bounced. And it would be just, for the league, who just love, and it makes total, I get it. LeBron James and the Lakers in general are always going to draw ratings in the NBA playoffs. And especially, the ratings in that bubble in Orlando last summer were not good at all. They were historically bad for the NBA. So the NBA really, really, really wants these playoffs and these finals to have really good ratings once again. Man, if the Lakers get bounced early because of the play-in tournament, that's going to be just a huge, huge story.
I could see that game should the Lakers end up in that scenario where they've got to fight for their lives, having huge ratings.
Yeah,
because people, I think we love to see someone who's on this pedestal have a downfall more than we'd like to see someone raised up to that pedestal. And watching LeBron be kicked out of the playoffs would make a lot of people happy, I think, at this point. But again, you're right. That does not bode well for the rest of the NBA playoffs and, what kind of audience they could bring in. It's crazy to think at the beginning of the season, especially after, the Nets acquiring James Harden, that it was, Lakers Nets are probably going to take you to the finals, and we're going to have this East Coast, West Coast thing going on. It's going to be like the next Lakers versus Celtics. It's now Celtics versus the Nets, right? These two super teams going at it. And now the Lakers are fighting for their lives.
Well, and even worse for the NBA, you look at the Western Conference, your top two teams right now are the Jazz and the Phoenix Suns. If one of those two teams goes to the finals, I mean, you've got the Clippers at the 3 slot. You know, the Clippers with Kawhi, yeah, there'd be a bit of a draw there. Nuggets with Jokic and not so. I think the Mavericks in the 5 slot. Kristaps Porzingis, Luka Doncic. The fact that it's Mark Cuban, I think the Mavericks are kind of a sexy team if they made it all the way to the finals. But as you mentioned, Brooklyn in the 2 slot in the East, you got the Philadelphia 76ers there. I guess Joel Embiid, okay, I guess. And then you've got the Milwaukee Bucks at 3. You could have either the Jazz or the Suns in the finals against the Bucks or the Sixers. And that would be, I believe, god-awful for the NBA. And I think that would be bad ratings for the NBA.
But isn't that horrible? Like, the NBA is in such bind here because you don't want to say it's horrible that 2 teams have played so well, but they aren't in a region that we like them to be in, and that's why you don't get superstars there to be. You're just projecting. It's feeding itself over and over again, when really you should be happy that these teams that don't tend to get the backing and support from the rest of the NBA, and people like to, once the finals come around, if their team's not in it, right, they jump on a Lakers or the Celtics or whatever, but you don't see a lot of people just jumping on the Suns or the Jazz.
Yeah, and that was the wrap on San Antonio.
We should be excited about watching good basketball. It shouldn't be the titles that make you excited, right? I don't want to see a crappy Lakers team go play, lose in 5 to a Nets team. If it's going to be like that, where we already know who the winner is going into it. I want to see 2 good teams take it to 7.
Absolutely. But I mean, a lot of fans and advertisers and a lot of people, even in the NBA, when the Spurs kept going back to the finals, and when they were playing like that early Spurs dynasty brand of basketball that was defense, it was like low scoring games, defense, throw the ball into Tim underneath, and Tim might kick it out to Manu or Tony, or he might not, or he might go to the Spurs were regarded as boring. And when they kept going back to the finals, people got sick of them. But they were a very good team. They had a winning formula. They had a great core in the big 3, Manu and Tim and Tony. But people were like, oh, God, not the Spurs again. And, of course, we Spurs fans were just thrilled to go back. It is 7:20. We're going to take a quick timeout right here for a shot at $1,000 for you. It's the Grand in Your Hand cash contest. We do this on this show at 6:20 and 7:20. We do it 12 times throughout the day, both on AM 1300 The Zone and Ticket 760. Your chance to get $1,000. You're going to get a keyword right now. You go to either website, pop it in where you see a Grand in Your Hand cash contest, and you're in the running for $1,000. Here it comes.
Right now, here's your chance to win $1,000. Just enter this nationwide keyword on our website. Pay. That's pay. Enter it now.
Pay. That's your keyword. All right, Shannon. Speaking of pay, how much would you pay for a diamond-encrusted Tom Brady football card? Apparently, and I'm reading from TMZ Sports, it was signed by Tom Brady. A signed Tom Brady card packed with diamonds. It's a card that's got diamonds wait. Yeah, there's a Super Bowl logo. It's a Super Bowl card, and it says Super Bowl gems. And it's got Tom Brady, who was the MVP of the Super Bowl when they beat the Carolina Panthers in 2004 in Houston. And it's got diamonds in it. And it came in a 2020 flawless NFL box, whatever that means. I'm not a big football card guy, but it is conservatively valued at $250,000. And You know, we have football cards, Shannon. They get auctioned. They sell for a lot of money. Obviously, an autographed football card by Tom Brady sells for a lot of money. And apparently now the next big thing might just be diamond encrusted football cards. This is just getting a little too weird for me.
When you first mentioned it, I was picturing a Tom Brady card that was taken to him that he signed, and then someone was like, you know what would make this better? Bedazzlement.
Diamonds.
And let me diamonds this up. But you're saying that this card was found signed with the diamonds in the box. Like that's how it was made.
It was there's a Super Bowl logo, and you can go see this at tmz.com/sports or tmzsports.com. Yeah, it's one side is Tom Brady, and it's signed by him, and you flip it over. On the other side is the Super Bowl logo. Let's see, that's 35, 6, 7, 8. Super Bowl 38. And the logo itself is encrusted in diamonds. Actual, real, not fake, diamonds.
Is it signed or is it printed?
It looks like I'm looking at a photo of it. It looks like it was signed by Tom Brady.
I just can't believe that's something that you find in a card box. I mean, I know that cards in general right now are going crazy. Like Target now has stipulations on you can't line up on Fridays to go buy cards, and you can only buy so many boxes at a time. I mean, man, the pandemic just really, I remember being a kid and trading baseball cards, not knowing who I was trading or what I had, but I did it. I would pay nothing personally. Tom Brady. And also I don't think I'd pay for any like favorite athlete. $250,000. So I almost think that seems low.
Yeah, because some of these.
Before you think about that Super Bowl, I mean, that was I hate to bring it up, the Justin Timberlake,
the nipple gate.
There's a lot going on during that Super Bowl.
See, I didn't even know what Super Bowl that was. It's interesting you remember the specific. I remember the moment.
I know JT, right?
True.
So I'm very into that, but
true.
In the span of time, where in Super Bowls is that Tom? Did they win that one?
They did win.
Him.
Yeah, I think that's because I was at his first.
The value of this.
Yeah, I was at his first, which was right after 2001, which was January of 2002 in New Orleans. So and this was 2004. I don't think they went back to back, and this would have been a three-peat. So this must be his second Super Bowl. 2004, Super Bowl 38 win over Carolina. That must be his second. Although I can't say for sure.
Do we know who found this? Like, is this a collector or is this like a random person who's like, let me buy some cards? And
I will.
That'd be better for me. I'd feel better.
I think someone randomly got it.
Rich now.
The card is a 1-of-1, features an image of Brady. It was pulled thanks to who is Brian? It doesn't have his last name. I'm trying to read. It was pulled from an Ultimate Box Breaks from someone who purchased a $6,000 box from Panini America this week. And so I think it was like a mystery box that he purchased for $6,000 inside this box. And it has this card in it worth apparently $250,000. You did say you thought it would go for a lot more. Right now, a Tom Brady rookie card last month at auction went for $1.72 million.
Did you ever see Storage Wars? I don't know if they still do that show.
I've seen parts of it. I've stumbled upon it. Yes.
Out to these storage lockers that are out for grabs because they didn't pay, and you don't know what's in them, and then you open them up, and you either have great things that you can then pawn off or whatever, resell, refurbish, resell, and make lots of money, or you've just bought a bunch of
crap.
That is very much how I look at cards.
Yeah.
Specifically a Tom Brady card.
But yeah, apparently there's a market and people love them. All right, coming up, if you think Shannon is salty about Tom Brady football cards, let's find out what's coming our way on the Salty Shakedown in the very next segment. We'll also fill you in on this day in sports history, sports birthdays, and more. Don't forget, 8 o'clock hour, 8:35, Andy Everett. Talk about Rory McIlroy's win in the Wells Fargo Championship over the weekend and Bryson DeChambeau's flight home to Dallas and then back when he realized he was still in the tournament. Crazy weekend in golf. So lots coming at you. We'll talk more NBA. We'll talk NFL. Got to talk a little Major League Baseball. Check into how the Astros and the Rangers did over the weekend. We are with you until 9, and you can join us on the phone lines, 800-707-9760. She's Shannon Salty Sweeney. He is Dave Ayler, the dude in the Slayer t-shirt on a Metal Monday. Thanks for hanging out with us on the Chris Duel Show. Chris Gonzalez, welcome. All right, now, Chris, you appear to know more about this than I do. Chris Gonzalez says, I think they make a diamond card every 5 years, but for only 10 athletes. Interesting. John Williams says, check my Facebook Messenger. John, this better be good. See what you got. Manu Ginobili blocking James Harden's shot. Yes. I have a t-shirt somewhere, John, of Manu blocking that shot from behind. It's the image. I'll have to find that and wear it in someday. I saw a lot of people talking about Manu on Twitter yesterday, and I don't know what inspired it. People were saying what was Manu's greatest plays, and maybe that was it. But I don't know why Manu was in the news or in the conversation. I'll post that. Somebody asked me about it on Twitter. That Brady card story. Here's that story. My gut at the moment, Wes says they get in. That's my gut at the moment. But I will admit I'm often very delusional when it comes to the Spurs and the Cowboys. So in other words, don't trust my gut on anything Spurs or Cowboys. All right, I am going to, I think I'm going to, if it'll let me. Yep. I'm just pasting in that Tom Brady story in case anybody's interested. Laura Burris was obsessed with Storage Wars. I think I'm going to tank up on coffee again because I can and because I should and because God knows I need the caffeine on a Monday morning. Although I'll be worse tomorrow because there's a Spurs game tonight. So I'll have less sleep tomorrow. I actually got 5 hours of sleep last night, which for me is like, it's like 20 for the average person. All right. Be right back. Yeah, Carl, I saw that 2-2 in that SAFC game. Good morning, Beth Settle. Good to see you in here. Here we come. Welcome back in. Good to have you here. It's the Chris Duel Show, along with Shannon Salty Sweeney on a metal Monday, on a manic Monday. Dave Ayler, your soundscape stylist, in the Slayer t-shirt, hitting you with some metal throughout the morning, which is all sorts of fun. All right, Dave, before we move on, I am terminally unhip, as both of you know, when it comes to music. If it ain't the Beatles, as I wear my Beatles baseball cap, and if it's not the 70s or the 60s, I'm probably clueless. Who were we just listening to?
It was Kiss.
That was Kiss?
Cold Gin. Yeah.
I know Kiss. I like Kiss. Yeah, I want to rock and roll all night and party every day. Beth, a great song by Kiss. I heard Kiss was going on tour, but then COVID happened, and it was going to be their final tour. So I'm wondering if Kiss is going to don all that makeup and pick up the tour one more time.
On their supposedly final tour about 3 or 4 times.
Oh.
The tour's been going on for about 15 years.
Yeah, hard to walk away from all that cash when people want to throw cash at you if you're Kiss. All right. Thank you, Dave Ayler. I can't believe that was Kiss, and I didn't know that was Kiss. Wow. All right. In a moment, Shannon's Salty Shakedown. But before that, we'll let you know who's having a sports birthday. And this day in sports history. May 10th, 1967, Hammerin' Hank Aaron hits his only inside the park home run. He hit it off of the Phillies' John Bunning, the pitcher in Philadelphia. Kind of surprising. I would have thought in that long, illustrious career and with all those home runs that Hank Aaron had till that record was, taken from Barry Bonds via all the steroids, Barry Bonds, a.k.a. the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. I would have thought Hank Aaron would have had more than one inside the park home run. But no, he only did it once. It was this day in 1967. On this day in 1993, Bill Walton, the big redhead, was inducted into the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame. Shannon, 2 things there. Number 1, this weekend, Tim Duncan, along with the late, great Kobe Bryant and others, will be inducted into the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame. I wonder what the over-under is on Tim Duncan's speech. I would say 97 seconds, the over-under. Just a guess. But here's my question for you, Shannon. Bill Walton, like Joe Buck, like Chris Collinsworth, a lot of people hate Bill Walton. How do you feel about Bill Walton as a basketball commentator?
I'm not going to use hate, but he talks about everything but basketball. And hearing him during the basketball season this year, It's so annoying. Like, he asked his co-host so many times if he had traveled to, like, I think it was Hawaii. And, like, the next day he'd ask him again. And like, no, he told you yesterday. And the comments about how they're not in the same place and he's wherever. I'm like, dude, I have to watch the game in silence when he's commenting.
See, I love him.
I don't like the shtick. It's a shtick and I don't like it.
See, I don't think it's shtick. I think it's who he is. I love him. I love. If Bill Walton called a middle school basketball game, I would watch. I would listen. I would love it.
Saying he's calling a game is generous though, because he's not.
Now and then he'll comment on what's happening.
Just commenting.
I think I told you this.
That comes to his mind.
I think I told you this once before. Andy Everett and I once at the Final Four was in San Antonio at the Alamo Dome. So we did the show live from. We had Bill Walton as a guest. You know, he was going table to table like press row during the Super Bowl. We had him on for like 8. We had 8. We went late in the segment. We went 18 minutes with Bill Walton. Asked him 2 questions. I asked him 1 question. He went about 9 minutes. Andy asked him a follow-up question. He went about 9 minutes. It was like an 11-minute segment. We went 18 minutes with Bill Walton. But again, I loved it. I love him.
With him.
Yeah,
I just don't want to listen to him call games.
I love this guy. I love Bill Walton. Okay, I know. I'm a freak. This day in 2002, finally, the Anaheim Angels crush the Chicago White Sox 19-0. The Angels joined the 1923 Indians, the 1939 Yankees, and the 1950 Red Sox as the only teams to beat 2 opponents by 19 or more runs in the same season. It's a rare event. That's it. This day in sports history. How about some sports birthdays? Born on this day in 1930, American NFL football player and longtime and legendary CBS sportscaster Pat Summerall, who made his home in Dallas. Pat Summerall was born on this day in Lake City, Florida. He died in 2013. And Shannon, Pat Summerall originally paired with John Madden, and that duo just blew up. Pat Summerall and John Madden for years and years and years were CBS's and probably all of football's A-team as far as a broadcast crew. Born on this day in 1942, Jim Calhoun, college basketball coach, Hall of Famer, coached UConn to the men's championship in 1999 and 2004. He would later coach at the University of St. Joseph, born in Braintree, Massachusetts. I didn't know there was a Braintree, Massachusetts. And finally, born on this day in 1955, speaking of sportscasters, Chris Berman, legendary ESPN, probably the most famous ESPN sportscaster ever. Chris Berman, born on this day in 1955. Happy birthday, Chris Berman, Jim Calhoun, and Pat Summerall. That's it. Those are the only 3 we've got today. Those are your sports birthdays. And now, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, here it is, Shannon's Salty Shakedown.
All right, Chris, we've got breaking news in the racing world over the weekend as this year's Kentucky Derby winner has tested positive after winning the Kentucky Derby. Medina Spirit failed its post-race drug test. As of right now, the win still stands, but it could be removed, which would also remove the $1.86 million prize. Now, this is the horse of trainer Bob Baffert.
I think it's Baffert.
Bob Baffert.
Yep.
It's his 5th horse in just over a year to test positive.
Uh-oh.
He says he's done nothing wrong. No one on his team. He says he's not big on conspiracy theories, but clearly someone's after him.
Because it's the 5th time. Yeah.
Yeah. I think you were wrongfully banned from Churchill Downs. This horse, however, still has a chance to run in the Preakness. That is now up for review. They might be pulled. Luckily, and maybe not so luckily, those who bet on Medina Spirit to win the Kentucky Derby still get to keep all their winnings no matter what, even if they pull that win from Spirit itself. But if you bet on the second place horse, you're like, well, wait a minute.
Uh-huh.
I mean, so thank goodness I'm not a gambler, because I would be very, very upset. But what do you think about this in horse racing? Because I mean, they talk about it tainting the sport. This, that. I'm like, at the end of the day, they're animals running the race. I mean, well, how much of a sport is it really?
Well, yeah, that's a valid argument. Is it a sport? Because they're the animals running the race. But I mean, obviously, we don't want them jacking up animals on steroids to run faster. That's a little cruel and unusual. And with Bob Baffert, my feeling is where there's smoke, there's fire, and the burden of proof is on him to exonerate himself. I mean, that's a big name in horse racing, Bob Baffert. Churchill Downs, as you said, has suspended him. I think they need to suspend him from all horse racing for at least a year. Let him think about it and say, hey, and if this happens again, we're going to give you the death penalty and ban you from the sport. I think it's a little ridiculous.
Yeah, it's funny to imagine someone sneaking into the stables late at night and trying to drug up a horse.
But there's
I don't know.
Millions on the line.
Well, I mean, I guess they'd have to, like, the main goal would be to go after Baffert, right? Because the horse, I mean, I don't know. They win. What if the test, I don't know, comes back positive? It's just all very strange. I can see the 30-30 for now happening in a few years, all about Baffert and his crazy career as a horse trainer. Moving on from the great horse race to the great hockey player known as Wayne Gretzky. This awesome story appeared online recently. Apparently 30 years ago, he was part of a signing where he's at an event, you go, you see him, he signed something. Well, this woman and her 1-year-old child show up, but she did not come with anything for him to sign. No memorabilia, no picture, no nothing. So she took the Nike shoe off of her 1-year-old son and handed that over to him, and he signed the toe, which was rubber. And 30 years later, now a 31-year-old, this gentleman was looking to have it re-signed because it's been rubbed off after all of these years. And he posted the story on his Facebook. It eventually made its way up to Gretzky's people. He was able to send in the shoe. Gretzky re-signed it. He also added a 1 of 1. It was also authenticated, so it's got its special papers. It's now also in a nice glass box, so hopefully it will not lose its shine of that second signature. I mean, how incredible is this? Most people just dream to get one signature, or even in these days, a selfie. But to do it twice, and to specifically request for, hey, you did this for me, I really appreciate it. Signatures kind of faded away. Can you re-sign it? How crazy is that? And from a guy like Wayne Gretzky, who is still known as the greatest hockey player of all time. I mean, what if you're Roger Staubach? You have a signature of his, don't you?
I do.
If that ever like faded or went away, you'd hate it. You'd feel so bad about it.
True.
And the chances of him re-signing it would be so slim.
Mm-hmm.
And yet this guy pulled it off.
But it is interesting. And maybe you mentioned selfies. I also have, a selfie with Roger. We were in Roger's suite. So I got a photo with Roger, with me and with my wife. And it's interesting how, we talked about the Tom Brady card earlier that was autographed. In this case, a Wayne Gretzky autograph. For me, for me, the memory and the selfie is better than the autograph. I mean, an autograph's nice, but it's like, hey, here's the moment. This is the photo. This is us with Roger. To me, I prefer the photo, but a lot of people love autographs.
I'd be all for the photo as long as it also came with a conversation.
Oh, yeah.
Or something to take away from it rather than just, look, I got a photo.
True.
Like for me, if I were to ever meet JT and it was, you can either have a 60-second conversation or you can take a 5-second selfie, I would take the conversation.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't need to prove it to the internet.
Yeah, exactly.
I got nothing to prove.
Yes.
But that, I just thought it was one of the greater stories from the internet today. The internet doing its job and uplifting these kind of people into the people who need to see it so they can get that signature. I think it's an incredible story. And like the shoe, the fact that he still has this little teeny tiny shoe that his mom handed over to Wayne all these years ago to get a signature. And finally, I want to talk about Gronk. We talked about Brady. Let's talk about Gronk, okay? Because Gronk is doing good in his old neighborhood by giving back, specifically $1.2 million to a Boston park to be renovated. Legislation has now been sent to the floor to be passed to name the new playground on this new park. the Gronk playground, which I think is very appropriate because we all know Gronk is just a giant kid at heart, right?
Mhm.
But the story is fantastic because in 2013 he got infected. He had to go to the hospital for a week after arm surgery, and his arm was infected, and he looked out over this park for over a week. And so now he is donating to have it renovated and redone, and he wants to give back to not only the city he loves so much, but to future generations who will grow up learning, playing, exercising, and just having a great time there. We all know the NFL is big about 60 minutes of play, and so not only is he just getting out to play with these kids, but he's putting in the work. I mean, it's the biggest donation for a Massachusetts park in its history. I think it's absolutely incredible. He's now obviously in Tampa, but the fact that he's still giving back. He talked about how Kraft and his time with the Patriots impacted him to do something like this because he was so big about giving back to his community. So way to go, Gronk, for that. I'm super excited to see what it looks like. Gronk talked about how I guess they're close to the area where the duck boats take off in Boston, and that he wants to have some sort of duck boat within the playground. So I think that's incredible. I can't wait to see what it turns out to look like because they are going to get rid of the current playscape and then bring in all new stuff for the kids. And with as big as the donation is, they're going to be able to renovate, bring all this new stuff in, and keep up with it for at least 10 years with just the money he donated alone. So way to go, Gronk.
Now you said it was 1.2 million. Is that
Mhm.
correct?
Yeah.
See, I love the story because we think of Gronk, as you said, as a party guy, and I even kind of think of him as a big buffoon. I mean,
Sometimes, yes.
yeah, he's I mean
And his
very
profile
talented.
picture on Twitter, it's like
Yeah.
him rolling on the floor.
Yeah. So for him, I mean, use your platform for good. In his case, he's made a lot of money over the years in the NFL, and the place that he rose to fame and prominence was Boston. And especially now, those fans, I'm sure must feel, if you're a Patriots fan in Boston, it's like, oh my God, he and Brady left us and went to Tampa, and now they're winning Super Bowls. So for him to continue his affection for the Boston area, and in this case, it helps kids. This
Mhm.
park, yeah, I love it. That's cool.
And not to I don't want people to think that he did this just because now he's back in the limelight, he's got another Super Bowl, I'm just coming back here because I can. He started this effort 20 months ago, and I'm sure the pandemic played a bit of a role in making it take so long to get to this point where we are now, where it's been announced that this is happening. But he got in on this 20 months ago was when he decided that I want to give back to this community and the future generations of it. So fantastic for Gronk. That's our Salty Shakedown for today.
Excellent Salty Shakedown. Now I have to ask you this, Shannon, because we talk about Brady a lot. You've had it with Brady. You'd like to see him just move on. You have Tom Brady fatigue, yet you seem to have an affection for Gronk. I find that kind of interesting. And they were both part of that dynasty. It's almost their one comes with the other, especially now in Tampa Bay again. So how do you feel about Gronk compared to your feelings about Tom Brady?
I'm not up for the antics that Gronk has done in the past, but he, with all the success, he doesn't take himself too seriously at all.
Yeah.
If at all. Whereas Brady is all serious all of the time. Even when he's being funny, he's not being funny. It's like a marketing move.
Oh, I think Brady's having a little more fun. I think Brady's having fun in Tampa Bay these days. Yeah.
These days. And it's a lot more fun to see the stories about him. And, there's one every other day because he's still Tom Brady. But I like him now better than I did when he was with the Patriots. He was a little too straight-laced, took himself way too seriously. I don't know where that came from, but yes, he does seem to have relaxed a little bit. But yeah, given the two, I'll take Gronk any day.
See, and as I've said many times, I've flipped on Brady. I got tired of the Patriots winning year in, year out. It was getting old. So I can relate to your feeling about him and the Patriots because I had it. But right about the time when Bill Belichick got Jimmy Garoppolo, and he and others on that Patriots staff were beginning to see the end of the line for Tom Brady and feeling that his skills were diminishing. Then Brady turned 40 and said, I want to play until I'm 45. To see him able to do this. And I remember when I was a kid, George Blanda was a quarterback and a kicker for the Oakland Raiders. And I remember on a Monday Night Football game in 1974, he came off the bench to beat the Cowboys. And George Blanda at age 45 looked like he was 65. And Brady at 43 looks like he's 33. It's just cool to see Brady do it. And I think it's so difficult and so unprecedented to keep your body in this shape and to be able to play at this high level. It's just fun for me to watch now. So I flipped. I'm enjoying him now, whereas I didn't used to.
I hope the Bucks lose every game this season.
Well,
every single one of them.
Because the new sheriff in town is Sunshine. Trevor Lawrence of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yeah.
He's the next big thing.
And he's officially got photos now in his new uniform.
Ooh, you're right. And the whole Trevor Lawrence versus Patrick Mahomes era can now begin. 8 o'clock hour coming up. We got a sports update for you at the top of the hour. Andy Everett a little later in the 8 o'clock hour. Lots to talk about. She's Shannon Salty Sweeney. Dave Ayler is your soundscape stylist. I'm Chris. With you till 9 on the Chris Duel Show. Robert Silva says my best friend got his boxing glove signed twice by Oscar De La Hoya. The second time he initialed it and dated it. That's cool. Dean Stone and Carl Fisher digging the shakedown. Jorge says man crush on Tom Brady. I don't know if I have a man crush. Maybe. I don't really. I just and as I get older and older, I have an extra appreciation for guys now like Brady and like what Manu did, and is playing into his 40s as Tim Duncan did, barely. To see these guys do it on a high level late in their career is just, I think it's fun to watch. I think it's inspiring. I think it's good for people. Carl Fisher says Gronk is awesome. Jorge says it's a good time for San Antonio to get a Major League Baseball team because the Rangers suck and people hate the Astros. A new team Texas can cheer about. I wish San Antonio would get a Major League team. I think we would support it. I think we proved that with the Spurs. I mean, it's so damn hot here in the summer. I think you'd need a retractable roof like Minute Maid Park and now like Arlington. What I don't like, and to his credit, Mayor Ron Nierenberg didn't like it either. You know, there was a drive to build a AAA park in downtown San Antonio. And at the time, it was Cheryl Scully, the city manager, and her husband, who fancies himself as a sports business expert. And they said, hey, Nashville has this. They've got a downtown AAA park. I don't get excited about AAA baseball or AA baseball. Even though it's got its place, God love the Round Rock Express and the San Antonio Missions. But I get super excited about Major League Baseball. And Mayor Ron Nierenberg, one of his arguments against the AAA stadium was, he said, I see San Antonio as a major league city. So if we're going to invest money in something, it should be a major. Thank you. Dean Stone says it. No more minor leagues. Dean, amen. I agree with you. The missions rock, says Carl Fisher. You know, and again, for what they are, I like them. You know, the San Antonio Iguanas rocked in minor league hockey. The Round Rock Express rocks. But I think if Austin could get Major League Baseball, or San Antonio could get Major League Baseball, or if we could share a regional team between the two cities, that would really rock. Good to hear, Carl. I had not looked at the missions record yet this year, so I'm glad they're off to a good start. All right. Let us scour the sports world here. To both Wes's and Dean's point, Wes Perkins says, I want a Major League Baseball or NFL franchise, but the window's closing with Austin attracting major sports. Dean Stone says Austin is a major threat to San Antonio. They have huge corporate potential. See, I always go back to this, gentlemen. The market and who I'm losing his name right now for some reason. Graham Weston. God, how did I lose his name? One of the founders of Rackspace and an entrepreneur and a visionary. He also co-founded Geekdom Downtown. Graham Weston said this 7 years ago, maybe more, that Austin, he calls it ASA. It's Austin, San Antonio. He said San Antonio and Austin need to view Austin, San Antonio as one market. To a certain extent, that's why we do this show, joining Austin and San Antonio. I think there's a way to do that, and that may be the only way. San Antonio and Austin maybe get an NFL franchise, maybe get a Major League Baseball franchise. Bernard Trefan says David Robinson Jr. is the director of parks for the Weston Group downtown. That's cool. Yeah, I think you could build a football stadium or a baseball stadium or both or a sports complex. Who mentioned San Marcos? Jason did. You could create high-speed rail, and even if you didn't have high-speed rail, we can be in San Marcos in 35 minutes from San Antonio and probably the same distance from South Austin. I just think it would make sense for an NFL and or a Major League Baseball team to utilize both fan bases. And more importantly, both corporate bases. And you've got 2 television markets that you can combine. Just lots of potential revenue to be made there. I think New Braunfels is a little too sleepy. When I think of New Braunfels, I think of I like New Braunfels. That's no slam on New Braunfels. New Braunfels is cool. But I think, plus it's too close to San Antonio. I think you need to be close to midpoint. You need to be close to mile marker 200, where the outlet stores are, to be like halfway between San Antonio and Austin. John McGee, good morning. I love your attitude, John. Blessed with another week. It's very cool.
Now, Chris Duel.
We move into the 8 o'clock hour on a metal Monday, on a manic Monday, May 10th. It's the Chris Duel Show. I'm Chris Duel, along with Shannon Salty Sweeney. Dave Ayler is your soundscape stylist. Rocking the free world. Andy Everett going to join us at 8:35. Andy is our go-to golf guru, and he's also the voice of UTSA athletics. I got a feeling we'll probably go heavy golf with Andy today, but not exclusively golf with Andy. We did have a couple of major golf stories over the weekend. Rory McIlroy wins the Wells Fargo Championship in Charlotte, North Carolina, on a weekend that Bryson DeChambeau thought he missed the cut. So he got on an airplane and flew home to Dallas. And when he got to Dallas, he found out that he made the cut, and he hopped on a plane and flew back to Charlotte and played the next day and played golf and played pretty darn well. Wound up, I think, being 6 strokes off the pace. So we'll talk a little bit about that with Andy. And Andy's also been a longtime broadcaster over the years with Spurs Sports and Entertainment, and there is speculation, perhaps unfounded, and I hope unfounded, and none of it generated by the Spurs, none of it generated by Coach Greg Popovich, but there's talk, there's chatter about what about Greg Popovich, and I've heard Shannon, I even in here some people, someone said it, that Pop doesn't seem to have the fire that he had in previous seasons, that Pop in previous seasons would get tossed out of more games. I think what they're getting at is he's not screaming at the officials as much as he used to. He's not getting thrown out of games. So Becky Hammon has to coach. I just wonder, my thought, and I don't necessarily agree with that, but my thought, Pop is 72. He's seen it all. He has said this is the youngest team he's ever coached since being with the Spurs. Andy's a guy who went through a personal tragedy just a few years ago when he lost his soulmate, his wife, the mother of his children, who he knew for decades and decades and decades and loved. And I think you reach a certain point in life where you go, things are not as worth freaking out about as maybe they used to be. So I just think maybe on a certain level, Pop might have mellowed a little bit. I don't think that in any way diminishes his genius Hall of Fame coaching skills.
Yeah. And again, this crazy year, he's traveling too and a part of all of these games, and is having to wear a mask and respect all the guidelines, and that's going to wear people out too.
Yeah.
So just like the team at times seems a little deflated, we can't knock him for being deflated as well. And I don't think anyone will say anything poorly on him if he decides that this is when he wants to hang it up and walk away. And I know some people maybe feel, we got some people saying he just needs to go. I don't know. I still see him being here for at least another year. And so do most people in our poll currently, as we're asking on Twitter today, how much longer does Greg Popovich remain as head coach of the Spurs? Currently, 54% of the people believe through at least next season, 40% saying ends this season, that he'll retire and walk away, and 4% now saying 2 more seasons for Pop.
So we shall see. And I'll pose that question to Andy Everett, who has been a keen observer and broadcaster for Spurs Sports and Entertainment over the years. Andy joining us at 8:35. This during the break, Shannon, and I want to get your Austin perspective on this. During the break, just talking about all things sports, and Wes Perkins, who's called us on the phone lines a number of times and has actually been in studio and been on Spurs React before. He wrote about San Antonio. He's a San Antonio guy. He said, I want a Major League Baseball or an NFL franchise for San Antonio, but the window is closing with Austin attracting major sports. And then Dean Stone wrote right after that, Austin is a major threat to San Antonio. They have huge corporate potential. And obviously, Shannon, as you well know, most recently, it was Austin FC, the city of Austin, that was awarded the MLS franchise, while the San Antonio fan base and certainly San Antonio FC and Mayor Ron Nierenberg in San Antonio made a play for MLS soccer. It did not work. It did not work now. But Shannon, I always go back to this, and I want to get your thoughts on it. One of the biggest businessmen in San Antonio and Austin, one of the original founders of Rackspace, his name is Graham Weston. He also founded a great organization in San Antonio called Geekdom, which is a tech incubator in downtown San Antonio. But I remember he said this like 7, maybe 8 years ago. He does a lot of business in Austin. He does a lot of business in San Antonio. And he said San Antonio and Austin need to think ASA. He said it needs to be thought of as one market. He said it will create more power in the tech sector, more power in all business sectors. And he didn't specifically say sports, but I've always thought when it comes to the NFL or when it comes to Major League Baseball, that if Austin and or San Antonio wanted an NFL franchise or a Major League Baseball franchise, to me, it would make sense to combine the markets, like Graham Weston says, ASA, and build a stadium near San Marcos and ideally build high-speed rail so fans could get there quickly. But even if you didn't do that, I mean, from San Antonio, we can get to San Marcos in like 35 minutes. If you're on the north side of town, I would imagine from the south side of Austin, probably the same, depending on I-35 traffic. Do you think it's outlandish, Shannon, for the NFL or Major League Baseball for Austin and San Antonio to combine markets?
No, and I think that would be the way to go if one of those MLB, NFL were to be a discussion to be brought to Central Texas. I think that would definitely be where they would end up, similar to how the Cowboys, they're the Stars in Frisco and then the stadium is in Arlington, right? They're not actually playing in Dallas. So, and no one fusses about that. I think if they were to say, okay, we're going to bring a professional team of whatever variety and place the stadium in between Austin and San Antonio, then, okay, well, what city, I guess, then gets the name? Or would you go with something like ASA or
maybe even ASA, yeah,
or Central Texas? I don't know.
The Rangers are called the Texas Rangers,
right?
So.
I don't get the fight between what city gets it, what city doesn't. Like, if there was only one football team in Texas, I would go for that football team. But I have the choice of 2, so I go with the Cowboys.
Yeah.
There's, now 3 MLS teams. Well, I'm gonna go with the one closest to me for that one.
So why don't you do that in the NBA? Spurs are closer than the Mavericks,
Dallas
young lady.
is where my mom's from.
All right.
Sorry.
Family roots.
Yeah. But I just don't I don't get the back and forth between because it's not like the people of Austin have anything to do with whether or not we get them. I mean, I guess there'd be a vote to say whether you're okay with it, but it's not like there's, whoever raises the most money by selling cookies gets to have the team between Austin and San Antonio. But I like the idea of putting them in the middle. And 2, like, there's just really no room. Like, when they announced Austin FC, I was like, where are they going to put this stadium?
Yeah.
And for those that don't realize, they knocked over plenty of buildings and lots of businesses around the area. They bought up that land so they could build the stadium and add parking and all the stuff that they now have, which you'll get to see this week when you drive by it.
Yes.
Awesome. Yeah. So I'm for having like the ASA thing. I think that's really great, and I kind of like that. There's one thing in San Antonio and there's one thing in Austin, because it does create, this neighborly like thing where, you have sugar, I have flour, right? So it's, I got to go down to San Antonio if I want to like have a day on the Riverwalk, or I want to go. Some of my favorite memories growing up were like going to SeaWorld. Like, that was my first ever
Yeah.
amusement park. And I know people have thoughts about SeaWorld, but my point is, like, Austin doesn't have the theme parks, right? And Austin, up until the last 10 years, doesn't really get the concerts either. All my concerts growing up were in San Antonio, which
Yeah.
was great. It was a reason to go visit San Antonio, and it's like a mini vacation every time you go. It's wonderful, and I would hope people feel the same when they come up to Austin, whether it be for South by or Coda or whatever. One of the different offerings that they don't necessarily have.
Well, and it's kind of, Shannon, the philosophy behind this radio show. The fact, you do what you do from Austin, I do what I do from San Antonio, and we've kind of embodied the whole ASA thing, and I totally agree, and I do, and I kind of get it, but now that it's happened, I wish, the angst that some San Antonio soccer fans have, and I mean, they're rabid fans, and I got to know them back when I used to work with the San Antonio Scorpions in the same stadium, Toyota Field, where the San Antonio FC plays now. But and I kind of get it, because they really, really wanted, and there was movement and an effort to get MLS soccer here in San Antonio. It didn't go that way. It went to Austin. But as you mentioned,
those feelings should be towards the MLS and not,
right. Well, and you should still, I support Austin FC. I also support, it's in a different soccer league, San Antonio FC. In the same way you mentioned the Dallas Cowboys, I don't say, well, I'm in San Antonio, we should have an NFL team. So no, they're the Cowboys. And I actually, in the AFC, I like the Texans. And there are so many Texas Longhorn alums in San Antonio, and growing up in San Antonio, the Longhorns have always been huge. So were the Aggies to a lesser extent, but it's most kids growing up in San Antonio, your college football team of choice, and a lot of kids grew up to attend the University of Texas, was the Texas Longhorns. To me, it seems natural to have an affinity and a partnership and just a back and forth as a human being. Go to Austin, do this. Go to San Antonio, do that. Those who have a little bit of angst for whatever the reason, I find it unusual.
Yeah, I'm not sure where it comes from. It's almost like a sports angst.
Yeah. Yeah, I think part of it's human nature to be a little tribal.
Sure.
Even like, I like my high school has a rivalry with your high school, even in the same town. But I think for the future, and I think Graham Weston, who we started this discussion with, he's a multi-millionaire, perhaps in the B's, I don't know, billionaire businessman. And he's by the way, a very good man and a philanthropist. And he does a lot for charities around the state and around the country. I just think he's kind of a visionary. And I think he analyzed the future and the future of tech and the future of business. And I think his conclusion is ASA, Austin, San Antonio. So anyway, it's interesting that conversation just popped up on on Facebook Live. So I thought I would.
Just to even put a dagger in it even further. I don't think a MLB team or an NFL team are going to be coming to the Central Texas area in my lifetime.
See, but I think they should. So I just we love football here. I mean, look at Longhorn games. We love the NFL here. And I go back to when the Saints came to San Antonio for what was a season, but was only 3 games in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina. We filled up the Alamo Dome with 65,000. And one of those games was during a Cowboys game. And that was not a good Saints team at the time, and their opponents were not good. One of them was against the Buffalo Bills, who sucked at the time. Another was the Detroit Lions, who always suck. And the only interesting game, they played the Atlanta Falcons, who had Michael Vick at quarterback. So that was a bit of a draw. But before that, and that was in 2005, which is now seems like a century ago. It almost is. People used to say, San Antonio could never support an NFL team because we're a Cowboys town. Well, first of all, it was the Saints. It wasn't even a San Antonio. It was the Saints hanging out for a year because the Superdome was damaged, and we filled the damn So my point is, I think we passed the audition that you can get 65,000 plus in a stadium in South or Central Texas for the NFL, even for bad NFL football games.
I have no question that stadiums wouldn't be filled. I just wouldn't, looking at the landscape of the NFL, I don't see the first place if they say, okay, we're going to expand. Let's add another team to Texas. I think it's kind of like the NBA conversation we were having earlier about what happens when the Lakers aren't in the playoffs. But these smaller, you want the smaller areas to be brought up and be part of it and get just as much attention. I'd almost like to see, the Rams left and went back to LA. Maybe St. Louis gets another shot at another team. They were, of course, heartbroken when they left. San Diego, even though California already has way too many NFL teams, but now Las Vegas is getting their shot. So I think it would go somewhere else first before Texas would then get a third.
Yeah, if we ever had, and I think where we had our best shot, Red McCombs, when he owned the Minnesota Vikings, and there was talk about were they going to build a stadium. Ultimately, they did. And Red, if their field goal kicker doesn't miss a field goal that he normally hits, Red takes the Vikings to the Super Bowl, which would have been cool for Red and Charlene McCombs, his wife. But it might, when Al Davis moved the Raiders to Los Angeles and the league said, no, you can't. And he said, yes, I can. And they fought in court. It might, the way it ever happens. And, if somebody like a Red McCombs, if a local businessman wound up owning an NFL team and then just decided, to move that team for whatever the reason, if the fans weren't supporting it the way he felt, but if he or she had roots. Are you listening, April Lancira? If she had roots to San Antonio or Austin or South or Central Texas and then moved it to, that's probably the only, I kind of see what you're saying, Shannon, and agree. The league probably won't expand here, but you never know. Somebody could own a team and say, I'm doing it. Let's go. Could happen.
I will also say that I think the argument for years was that, everything is so Texas football. And people, all the tailgating, everything that football games entail, it's an entire day event almost. People aren't going to want to do that 2 days in a row, which I agree. I mean, I'm someone who I get, socially worn out after one outing. But the way Austin is growing and Central Texas in general, with all of these people from other, California mostly, but then you have people from other schools. It's not all Texas alumni anymore.
Yeah.
They aren't necessarily going to the Texas games and cheering on. They may do it because it's the thing to do. But I think there's more variety of people who wouldn't be going on Saturday, but would be willing to go Sunday.
And I got a feeling, Shannon, the success of Austin FC, and it's very early, but as you've documented, there's a crazy long waiting list to get tickets, to be a season ticket holder to Austin FC. I think in the sports world, that's going to open more eyes to the city of Austin. I think it will, because it's a huge corporate base. It's a huge fan base. As you mentioned, you look at the fans who go to DKR to go to Longhorn games on a Saturday. Yep. So anyway, lot going on there. Before we take a quick break and check in with Andy Everett, talk a little PGA, talk a little Rory McIlroy and Bryson DeChambeau and little Greg Popovich with Andy Everett. I do want to point out, Shannon, that, and I've got actual documented evidence, according to Dave Ayler and his research, today is National Shrimp Day. Shrimp. Do you like seafood? Do you like shrimp? I think you don't like seafood, right?
Shrimp like cocktail is the only seafood I'll eat.
I like shrimp cocktail. I like fried shrimp. I like breaded shrimp. I'm down with shrimp. It is also, it's been this way for me for like 6 decades. It is National Clean Up Your Room Day.
I think I'll pass on that one.
How is your now? How is your? You've got furniture coming. You've got patio. I sense that your home is like meticulous and always everything is in order. Am I right, or is it a mess?
It can be. It's never like a mess.
Okay.
But like I rarely make my bed because I get up at the crack of dawn and then I come home and I take a nap and I'm like, well, I'm gonna be back in my bed in like a few hours.
Yeah. I've always thought I'm just gonna get back in it tonight. Why make the bed?
And I know there's a lot of people who are like, that's how you start your day. That's how you start off on the right foot. And I'm like, not at 4 a.m. You don't.
Yeah. My mom is 97 years old. She'll be 98 in August. And the first thing she gets out of bed, make the bed. It's her first order of business. And the bed's always like, boom, made, ready to go. So, yeah, I did not inherit that gene from my mom. Coming up, lots to talk about with Andy Everett, our golf guru. Rory McIlroy wins his first title in 18 months over the weekend. It was exciting. And I got to ask Andy, how does a professional golfer think he missed the cut, hop on an airplane, go home, Bryson DeChambeau, only to find out you're still in this tournament, and then comes back and plays real well? We'll talk about all that. And when does Andy think Coach Greg Popovich will ride off into the sunset? That and more. She is Shannon Salty Sweeney. Dave Ayler, your soundscape stylist. It's the Chris Duel Show. John Williams says, living in Dallas for 30 years, when they play the Red River Classic, after the game, UT fans go back to Austin, win or lose. Sooner fans stay and party in Dallas, win or lose. That's an interesting phenomenon. And the first thing that occurs to me, John, is, Austin fans have a lot more to go home to in Austin than Oklahomans. I see you, John, you sent me ESPN gives the Spurs trio some love for their defense. Yeah, Spurs, it's going to be interesting this week. AJ Green says about Oklahomans, do they celebrate a win or being out of Oklahoma? Yeah, there's probably a lot more going on in Dallas than in Oklahoma. Jason Paniagua, are crawfish considered seafood? I would say yes. That came up last week. John Williams says crawfish is not seafood. It comes from fresh water. What about fish that come from fresh water? John? Fish from a river is not seafood? That's what AJ Green's saying. So would salmon, depending on where it was caught. I got to voice a promo. I guess I'll do that after the show. Okay, I'll do that after. I don't think I have time. Let's do this. Where is... Okay, try them once or twice more. Cool. Thank you.
And
Beautiful. Here we go. ABBA is coming back. Little Mamma Mia for you. ABBA. Is it ABBA or ABBA? I think you're supposed to say ABBA. I know who would know the answer to that. Andy Everett joining the Chris Duel show along with Shannon Salty Sweeney. Andy Everett, is it ABBA or ABBA? Go ahead. One more. Yes, it is. I imagine growing up in Oklahoma, you said ABBA, and then later you went to ABBA. Very funny. Pat Evans, who was a longtime production guy in San Antonio at iHeartMedia. When I was going to USC, Andy, in the early 80s, I used to listen to a radio station in Southern California called K-Earth 101, and the morning DJ was Pat Evans. Little did I know I'd work with that dude 20 years later. Small world. All right, Andy, you are our golf guru. A big win for Rory McIlroy with the Wells Fargo Championship in Charlotte. Apparently it was down to the wire. Your thoughts on Rory McIlroy had not won in about 18 months.
Well, Rory always struggled with one thing in his game, and that is his wedge play. And the problem that he's had is that when you draw the golf ball, and a lot of people who hit the ball right to left and don't pay a lot of attention to hitting it left to right, sometimes it's hard to get wedges close. And so he hits the ball far enough to be able to play the ball with a fade. And I think that's what he and his coach have been working on his full swing. And then also changing that up a little bit on the shorter shots. And I can go back to 2018 when Tiger Woods won the Tour Championship. Tiger's approach shots with a 6 or a 7 or an 8 iron were closer than Rory's were with an 8-9 wedge. And it shouldn't be that way. And if Rory's going to play as well as he did this weekend by getting the ball pretty close to the hole and giving himself some chances for birdies with his wedge game, but he's going to be hard to beat because he's still one, if not the best drivers of the golf ball, and he's an exceptional iron player. He's just struggled over the last few years with his wedge play. And when he's won tournaments, that's been good, but it's been inconsistent. And I think some of the things that he's trying to do is to be more consistent with the way he hits those shorter clubs.
So, Andy, how do we need to view this win for Rory when we're just under 2 weeks away from the U.S. PGA Championship?
Well, I think he's going to be one of the favorites because they haven't played there since 2012, and there is Kiowa Island, the ocean course in South Carolina, and he won there by a record 8 shots back in 2012 and just dominated the field, very Tiger-like, if you will. And so when you don't go back to an event, and pretty much nobody's played that golf course in competition for the last 9 years, you have to feel like you're kind of the defending champ. It's a very difficult golf course. It's a very long golf course. Tiger hits the ball as far as anybody does. Rory hits the ball as far as anybody does. And is also able to usually keep it in play. And that's one of the things that I think will be to his advantage. And he's got to have a lot of confidence going into the PGA Championship next week.
Talking a little golf with Andy Everett. Andy, one of the stranger developments over the weekend, Bryson DeChambeau thought he had missed the cut. So he got on an airplane and flew from Charlotte, North Carolina to his home in Dallas, and then found out he had made the cut. So he flew back to Charlotte and apparently played pretty well. the rest of the tournament. How does a professional golfer not have that correct information? How do you think you missed the cut when you really did not miss the cut?
Well, I don't know if the cut line moved on Friday or not, but typically what they do is they cut the field to the top 65 and tie. And generally by Friday afternoon, and I'm assuming Bryce will probably played Friday morning, and they go, well, the cut line's 2 under. I'm not going to get there. And over the course of the rest of the day, enough players play poorly enough to where that cut line moves. And sometimes you need 8 or 10 players to make that move. And so that can happen. But most of the time people, especially, I can't imagine Bryson not flying with NetJets or Wheels Up or one of those private jet companies. I can't imagine he had an early flight on a commercial airline. But regardless of what he did or not, he probably just thought, well, I'm too far back. It's a shot or two. But if you're that close, you should hang around a little bit. And that the advantage of having a chartered aircraft is the flight time is whenever you say it is.
Well, have you heard of that before, though? Have you heard of a PGA golfer, certainly a name golfer, leaving the tournament thinking he'd missed the cut, only to learn that was not the case?
Not to my recollection. Now, I've heard people go back to the hotel and start to pack, and then all of a sudden they double check one more time, and I made the cut. I go, then they'll unpack and they'll get ready for the weekend. Also, years ago, and I don't remember which tournament it was, but Phil Mickelson's, I think it was a U.S. Open. Phil Mickelson asked the U.S. Open, and they gave him this opportunity. He said, can I play early on Friday? And typically the U.S. Open it's whatever they decide they're going to do. But Phil said, I would really like to have an early tee time on Friday and play late on Thursday. And you either play late one day or early the next day. And you don't get to pick. It's just, but he said, I really need to leave Friday evening so I can get to my daughter's graduation. And I believe he was in maybe it was the Oakmont event in 2015. And so he finished his second round at, I'll say, noon or 1 o'clock on Friday, went to the airport, a private airstrip just down the road from the golf course, got on his plane, flew to California, went to his daughter's graduation, and then turned around and flew back and was able to sleep on the plane and then get back in time for his Saturday tee time. So I have heard that before.
Well, and sticking with Bryson just for a minute here, because we do have that next championship coming up, and he's one of the bigger names now in the field and is looking for his first major at this point. But when we saw him at the Masters, he was hitting every shot almost way too long. And I know that's part of his game, but they just couldn't get that down. How does the field going into the U.S. PGA Championship, what is that course set up like? And is a player like him at more of an advantage here than maybe he was at the Masters?
Well, if memory serves me correctly, there is some forgiveness off the tee, so he can hit it a little bit left or a little bit right and be fine. But I think Bryce he's a brilliant guy. He's got an SMU degree. He thinks very analytically. And I think he's got to start thinking, I can't just overpower every shot at every golf course. And when you hit your pitching wedge 160 yards, and most players on tour hit it about 140, it's not that they can't hit it further, they choose not to. Bryce is going to have to figure out a way to play more finesse golf from time to time. The reason he won the U.S. Open at Winged Foot last fall is because he drove the ball well, and he putted better than everyone else, and his proximity to the hole was better than everyone else, or at least in the top 10 in all of those stats. So when he was at the Masters, he was missing fairways in the wrong spots. He was missing greens where it was impossible to get up and down, and then he was putting way too often for par. And Jack Nicklaus's famous quote years ago was, two things that don't last in this world is dogs that chase cars and golfers who putt for par. You have to be able to dial it back. And I would think that as his game progresses, if he's just going to go out there and rip it every time, he's a better golfer than John Daly was. But John Daly won 2 majors and a handful of tournaments. But John Daly never had a second or third or fourth dial back gear. He was never able to downshift. He was in 6th gear the whole time. And that's one of the things that Bryson, I think, has got to be able to do is figure out a way to not play at full speed. Just because you can hit a shot that far doesn't mean you should or have to.
He is Andy Everett, host of the Golf Show on Ticket 760, Saturdays at 8. Even if you're not in San Antonio, you can catch that on the iHeartRadio app. Also, the voice of UTSA Athletics. And new listeners may not know he was a longtime broadcaster for Spurs Sports and Entertainment and has covered the Spurs many years, for many years. Andy, the Spurs... just a game and a half lead over the New Orleans Pelicans. They've got 5 to play. They are not a lock for the number 10 slot. I guess they'd be the favorite because they've got the advantage in these final games. But it is conceivable that they will be done playing when the regular season ends on Sunday against the Phoenix Suns. And their coach, Greg Popovich, 72 years old. There's always speculation as to how much longer he will coach. So therefore, it is theoretically possible his last game coaching the Spurs could, we hope not, could be on Sunday against the Phoenix Suns. None of us know, but I mean, you followed Pop many years. What do you think goes into his decision process as to should he stay or should he go?
Well, I think a lot of people are very critical of the Spurs and when they don't win, and that's the business of being in the coaching world. But if you look at this roster, there's nobody on the roster that is as good as Tim, Manu, and Tony were, or David Robinson for that matter. It's a collection of very good players, but it's not a collection of superstars. And the teams that win championships and the teams that compete for league titles have 1 or 2 or 3 superstars on their team. And there's only about 12 superstars in the whole league that are the elite players. And so from my standpoint, I think the Spurs want to get back in the winner's circle as far as the playoffs are concerned. I'm not a big fan of this playing game. I think it's basically the same thing as giving a trophy to somebody that finishes in 14th place. Who cares? Eight teams are enough, but I understand why they're doing it. They want to get more TV revenue because they missed 10 games this year, and I hope that next year, if and when they go back to 82 games, that we keep it at 8, and if you finish 9th or 10th, you don't get in. But as far as Pop's concerned, I can't imagine that he doesn't want to be the all-time winningest coach, and I believe he's 30-some wins away from that. And another season would be would guarantee that. But I think one of the things that, and we talked about this prior to Tim Duncan retiring, that this was going to be what the Spurs were going to be when Tim Duncan left and when Manu and Tony left. And that there was a 20-year run that was really special with those guys. And if you can't get another player like them and then get that player to agree to stay for 20 years like Tim did, you're going to have cyclical times that you're good, and you're going to be kind of in that NBA purgatory where you're never good enough to win the thing, but you're never bad enough to get the lottery pick that's going to get you back up there. And then you have to hope that that lottery pick is not only somebody that's a difference maker, but wants to spend his life in San Antonio. So those are all the things that weigh into those decisions. But I think he'll obviously coach the Olympics this summer, and I would imagine he'll come back for one more year and then evaluate that. But at least from a selfish standpoint, I hope he stays long enough to get the record, even if he doesn't want it. I think he's certainly deserving of that opportunity to be the all-time winningest coach.
Absolutely. I'm with you. Don't want to see this party end just yet. Andy Everett, as I mentioned, host of the Golf Show, 8 o'clock Saturday mornings on Ticket 760, and the voice of UTSA Athletics. Andy, always great stuff, man. Thanks for taking the time.
See y'all later.
All right. Thanks to Andy Everett. And you will get more Andy Everett on Friday when I will have Friday off. It'll be Andy and Shannon on Friday, which should be a lot of fun. Shannon, speaking of Greg Popovich, that was our poll question. Where do we stand?
Yeah, so now up to 8% believing Pop will stay for at least 2 more seasons, 50% saying through next season, and 41% saying till this season ends, which, as you noted earlier, it ends this weekend.
Well, and we hope not. We hope the regular season, ends this weekend. But yeah, I'm hoping for a little play-in. I opened the last two, or like two. When we beat Sacramento, I opened Spurs React with "We want the Lakers." I see it. That's what I want the Spurs to go to the play-in tournament. I want to win the 9 versus 10, probably against Memphis. And then I'm hoping the Golden State Warriors knock off the Lakers. So in the play-in, it would be Spurs-Lakers. That'd be fun. Even if
I mean, I would be cheering for the Spurs at that point.
Whoa! And what if we did it? What if we knocked off LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and the Lakers? I'm getting a little ahead of myself, I know, but I tend to do that.
It could happen.
One more. Do I have time for this? You probably don't know about this. Dave Ayler presented me when I was in college. There was a movie. I think there was a sequel called Faces of Death. You ever heard of the Faces of Death movies?
No,
Shannon?
I have not.
Now, Dave Ayler, they were movies of actual people dying. They were like it was like showing like footage of people and animals dying.
Right.
Yeah, and it was like a cult. People loved it. Dave Ayler, did you see Faces of Death back in the day?
Seen the first one because there's actually 3 in that series.
I thought there were 2.
I think there's 3, and I've only seen the first one.
It's sick.
Found in VHS when I was in high school.
Yeah, and it's pretty gruesome and sick and weird to watch. And
Very gruesome.
anyway, they're thinking about making a new Faces of Death, Shannon. So if you missed the first 3, you got a shot at a new Faces of Death movie.
How is that legal?
I don't know. And why did I bring that up? Because Dave Ayler gave me the information. Yeah, just for Faces of Death fans out there. So you got something to be excited. Like Star Wars fans. Are you a Star Wars fan or are you a Faces of Death fan? Or maybe both. Anyway, something to be happy about. Shannon, I hope your furniture gets delivered today.
I hope so too, but it probably won't. It's
All
okay.
right.
I'm busy. I have an interview at the airport in an hour.
An interview at the airport.
TSA.
Whoa. See, you tell me that with no time left. I would have asked you more about it. We'll find out about that tomorrow. Thanks to Shannon Salty Sweeney, Dave Ayler, Andy Everett. We'll do this in 21 hours. Thanks for hanging out. See you later. Adios. See y'all later. Farewell, farewell, farewell. Adios.